All right, 7 o'clock.
Sunday! From the race lane 72, U.S. 30 Dragster, the Coca-Cola bottlers of Chicago Land present the Mr. Chevrolet USA Super Show Bike Car Showdown. From Pennsylvania, it's three-time national champion Jungle Jim Lieberman. From Dallas, Texas, Market and Martin, Drag-On Vega. From Alabama, the bold one, Bobby Wood. From New Jersey, Bruce Weston's Fantastic USA 150.
It just never gets old. That is the best.
I love it. I love
it's
it.
the best. It's the best.
Man, we didn't even get into full swing here, and we already got a question. So I don't want to miss this thing, but we'll go back through and greet everybody because you guys deserve to be greeted. You're here before the show even starts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I didn't want to miss one of these questions. It's literally the third thing down. Okay.
Yeah.
So good evening from Virginia. I've waited all week for this. I'm building a big block Mopar 512 running alcohol, aluminum heads with studs, and 16.5 to 1 compression.
I like it.
Yeah. What's the best head gasket for this application?
Multi-layer. Any type of multi-layer. I personally like some the Cometics. I was told that it might not be what we think, but I've always had good luck with the Cometics, but anything that's a multi-layer gasket would be the best. I run them in everything I run, anything I own in every engine that leaves out the door, except for the Slant 6.
Well, because I'm a Buick fan, I have very few options. It's usually like factory or Victor Wren's used to make one. I don't think they're even around anymore.
Yeah, I got Victor Wren stuff.
Do you? Mm-hmm. And then Molly makes stuff, and so does Felpro. But here's something I did find out is, like those funky Rover 215 engines have the same Buick pattern as all the other Buick engines. They make they came factory with multi-layered steel head gaskets.
Yeah, Gen 3 Hemi, same way.
Did it really?
Yeah, factory. In fact, the Felpro one is 51 thousandths thick. So I play with compression with the different levels.
Well,
thicknesses.
Unluckily, in those junky old Buicks, the early stuff came with stainless or with 20,000 steel shim head gaskets.
Yeah, same with Chrysler, the Slant 6, same way.
You can't find them anymore. So, yeah, I'm pretty much stuck using whatever I can find. But in my 13 to 1 motor that I got out in the garage for the super stock for the 63 Buick Special, it's running a custom one-off head gasket from a company, I can't remember their name. It's supposed to be good for 13 to 1 compression, and we're going to put it to the test. And so,
yeah, for the Slant 6, I have I bought some Victor Wrens, and I have some Felpros, and then I have a couple of the copper, shim gaskets. But the wife's car, the Beaver, that thing's still got the factory head gasket on it. It does weep a little bit of fluid now, but it is 50-something years old. But I just retorqued the bolts on it, and the weep went away. So keep your fingers crossed.
Well, they like to rust out around the water jacket. Those early gaskets do. But
yeah.
Well, here we are. We got Scarlet, the four-eyed Cuda, is here. Uncle Squirrel made it to pleasure us with his squirrels, I guess. We got Wannabe, Mopar Man 1978, Sand Mountain Ballistics, Danny Boyd is here. Let's see here. A Cove, greetings and salutations. Colleen Tebow is here, and they're pretty much she's saying that, hey everyone,
all the above.
See, I am so terrible when it comes to typing all this stuff out. I just can't keep up. I taught myself how to type, and I am not fast at it by any means.
I'd just rather call someone. People are like, why don't you text? I'm like, I can't text that fast. Fat thumbs.
Me neither. Yeah, and that's a definitive thing, I think, for our generation. Generation X cannot text.
No.
Damn, when did cell phones become a thing where people could text on them? I remember it about 2005 or 6.
6, 7. Yeah, mine was like, mine had numbers, so you had to hit like the 5 a couple times or this one a couple times,
Well, I remember them kids right around then. What was funny is they could literally take those numbers and just freaking push the button.
Yes.
Like, holy cow.
Right?
Yeah, but I was never good at it, and I hate texting. I'd rather just call somebody and be done and over with it.
I get these questions, and I'm trying to answer the first question, and I'm still writing that, and they already got 5 more questions there, and I'm just like, okay, call.
Well, we got Mopar Mustangs and minivans in the house. Twisted
man?
Mopar Garage. Fab Race Mod Repeat. Chris Cox out of Northeast Dragway. And don't forget, March 11th is our first AHRA event out at Northeast Dragway.
Yeah.
It's the open season shakedown. So, Twisted Mopar Garage saying Comedic. Yep.
Comedic.
16.5 to 1 will love that alcohol.
100%. It'll just eat it up. That's what it's for. Right there.
Well, that's the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Right? I'm telling you, I'm going to build a 300 Buick that's an all-out piece. All out. No, nothing left on the table. You know, it's got essentially pistons kissing the chamber. I mean, every bit of it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, Joe Sherman, when I went over to his shop a few times, he would show me. He goes, "This is how you know you made your setup correct," and you could just see the 2 witness marks of valves, just in the piston. They were just barely just in the carbon. He goes, "Perfect."
There's nothing left.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Greg McDonald's here. Let's see. Kevin's saying O-ring it.
Yeah, but that's a lot of work. You know, I
agree.
agree. It's a lot of machine work, and the Comedics, they work just as well. I've tested them; they seem to work just as well.
Danny Boyd says that's because kids are so needy that they're always texting and get that good at it. I don't know. Well, so Colleen's saying that my youngest wore the buttons off her first flip phone. So 2006, it was just like that was the new thing, was text.
Yeah.
Text,
remember when you had to
text,
pay
text.
for minutes? You actually had to pay for minutes. Remember
That's
that?
where text came from. Was you had to pay for minutes to talk on the phone. Mm-hmm. Texting was free.
That's right.
Right? And so people were using text to get away with the cheapness. Now, at the time, I don't even know if it exists anymore. Does Nextel still exist?
I don't know. I have Verizon.
Okay, well, Nextel used to have this, I don't know, like push-to-talk button thing on their phones.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? Mm-hmm. And you could literally, like, pull that out. If you had 5 people in, like, a group, right? Mm-hmm. You could ring them all at one time by pushing this push-to-talk button and say, hey, has anyone got this or whatever? And it didn't cost anything. But that was the only thing that was comparative to text at the time. Everybody else had text.
Yeah.
And that became the thing. Me, I just never used a phone. I only called people when it was necessary.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm trying to get away from this thing. I'm actually trying to just leave it at home sometimes. Just, not even have it.
So Uncle Squirrel says he's trying to get some hella compression out of his ride. He wants 12 billion to 1 compression. He said it's got to sound good. I'm sure it would.
Yeah. Like the little nuclear bomb.
So Twisted Mopar Garage says, I don't know what it is about alcohol and high compression being great. There's a point where alcohol stops and you end up going back to the high octane fuel.
I think it's the RPM. I think that's what it is. It's just like E85. E85 gets to a point in RPM where it just can't. You're putting so much fuel in there and burning it. It just has a hard time. I've seen that quite a bit on some of the dynos.
Well, when the octane is super high, because that's what happens when you give E85 or methanol, octane is fairly high, right? Like you're talking 106 to 112. Mm-hmm. The higher the octane, the slower the rate of burn on the fuel.
That's correct.
And your RPM can actually eclipse the burn rate of the fuel.
Yeah. I think it's 25,000 feet per second or something like that. I think is what the flame kernel rate is, something like that.
And I think that's what happens is that you get to the point where the efficiency of the fuel starts to fall off. Mm-hmm. And that's where if you were running methanol, what would be really cool at that point is if you started having alcohol injection. Or I mean, not alcohol injection, gasoline injection.
Yeah.
So you could get it back to a reasonable octane level.
That's funny. Yeah.
I just don't know. The other thing that I've always thought about a lot is the amount of fuel that you need for like methanol or E85 is so much more than gasoline, right? That it has to start hindering airflow in the cylinder, like through the runner, because there's so much damn fuel in there.
Well, it's evaporating, and it evaporates so easily. And so you're basically it's expanding is what's happening and inside the chamber, and it's cooling down at the same time. So that's how it's getting the oxygen. But once it gets to a point where it can't do that fast enough, it just doesn't burn anymore.
Yeah. So you're watching science happen right above your face at your RPM gauge.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tony's Hot Rod Garage is here. Levi's Backyard Performance is showing up. Man, everybody's jumping in here.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, Levi's saying, hey, Dallas, what are the rules on running nitro for the AHRA? I have no nitro classes, so if you want to come run nitro and be the exhibition guy, knock yourself out. I'm sure you'll have a crowd.
Yes, that would be awesome. It just, as long as you run nitro, just run something over, 40%. That way we get to hear it.
Oh, wow. Here's a lot of stuff that said, I didn't know all this was going on. No, Nextel was bought by Sprint, and then T-Mobile bought Sprint. And then Levi is saying that Motorola is the one that had that push-to-talk deal.
Oh, that was Motorola. Yeah. I think that's what it was. Maybe it was Next. I don't remember. I do know that we had that for a while at one of the companies I worked at. It was an electrical company, and we could basically just communicate with each other wherever we were. It was actually great.
I was actually trying to put something together for the AHRA. I don't know if anybody outside the AHRA even watches this, and who knows anymore. I'll never have the finances to make this kind of stuff work. But I had these freaking awesome ideas, right? Like, here's something that's pretty cool, and it doesn't exist. Okay, what if everybody was on essentially the same kind of like a chat room? Okay, if you were like, say, in the AHRA, you could go download this app for free. It was essentially a free chat room. But what it is if your car breaks down, like say your tow rig and your trailer and your race car, you're on your way to the next event and you break down and you're on the side of the road, you can get on that thing. It'll tell you who's the next closest person. You can chat to them and say, hey, man, I'm freaking 30 minutes away from your place. Can you come give me a hand? I got a flat. I kicked the rear end out. My tow rig's junk. Whatever. I just thought it'd be kind of cool as you could have a network of people like that.
Yeah, but then people couldn't lie anymore. They're like, man, I'm in the middle of something. They're just sitting on their couch, watching TV or something, So, but yeah. No, that would actually be kind of cool. But I think they have I think Facebook has that right now. I see a lot of, it's not Facebook, it's Twitter. I think people tweet out things now, and well, I've never been on Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah, the social medias have helped out a lot, but let's see.
Uncle Squirrel's got one here.
What's this one here?
No, it was at 709. It basically says, I've always figured that
okay. It's probably the other half of that or something.
Yeah. But he's always figured that 15.5 was about the maximum for alcohol pass, and it's basically diminishing returns at that point, in my opinion. I would agree with you as long as but you have to have the combustion chamber for it. Like if he's running 16-1, it's not going to be a single plug. Usually you're going to be at a twin plug at that point. More than likely a Hemi at that point. That's just my opinion. But I agree with you. 15.5-1 is, once you get over that number, it's really hard to burn that fuel.
Hey, let me ask you a question that I've been kind of like kicking around inside my gray matter here for the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm screwing with these Buick small blocks, and the 350 Buick is the one that I use for like my super stock motor, and then I'm doing the turbocharge application and stuff like that. And I noticed that all of the heads were essentially the same, except for they all have a pent roof design chamber, right, which is like a poly. Yeah. And then they have their non-cannon valves. The valves are in line, and then the early cubic inch stuff is closed chamber. Mm-hmm. And then the later, from 68 on up, it goes to open chamber. What I did notice is the way they did that was essentially just left more meat on the head. They didn't machine it down.
Oh, okay.
Right? So if I take the later heads and I machine it down, and I get, let's say I went from 58.5 cc chamber to 45. Yes, I know my compression would go through the roof, but that's not what I'm looking at. Right now I can change that just based on head gasket thickness and all the other stuff. The gains from closed chamber are essentially a quench pad.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And what else? Do you get more? I was going to say, do you get more cylinder action in there?
Yeah, you get a burn rate. Burn rate is better, because you're focusing it in one area. Plus, obviously, with your quench and so on and so forth, you're not. It's not in a big area. It's just in a smaller area. Especially with like we were talking about with the, your head's kind of like a poly head, or not. Well, poly's more canted out, but it'd be like an LA head, or even a Magnum head. It's still a wedge style, but the valve comes in at the top. Or the spark plug comes in at the top. So, that's why on the small blocks, I love that W2 head. It's a really small combustion chamber. It works well. It's almost like it's semi-Hemi.
Well, the reason why I was asking here is because I'm literally about to take a set of 350 Buick heads, and I'm going to mill them down.
Perfect.
Until it's exactly the same as a 300 Buick, this chamber size.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm going to do on this, the What If 300. Okay, so I originally got a set of heads for this What If 300, but they were a later style head, 75 and up. And I didn't realize it until after one day I was sitting in my garage and I looked over at those heads and I'm like, oh, dude, it's got an extra 2 water passages in it. That this 300 doesn't have, and then I couldn't use that head. Now I could have had I drilled a hole out and then fill it with a pipe plug and then remachine it and level it out. And I ended up scoring a set or a whole entire 69 350 Buick that didn't have those. It's actually just like the 300, where it has the oil through the head and the whole 9 yards, so it'll work just like it was factory. Right. And I'm like, that's the one I want to use. Yeah. Right. Because now it's a direct comparison. Now I'm going to have to change what push rods I got and all that's because I already ordered a set of push rods. But I think the smart thing to do is just change it over, give myself a different set of push rods. But I was going to mill the head until it had the same amount of chamber as the 67 head that I was going to compare it with.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. And I think I can go more.
Now, my lights just flickered, so if it goes off, as soon as it comes back on, I'll come back on because it just flickered.
Okay, well, don't sweat it. If it happens, it happens. If we go down, it goes down. Mm-hmm. So Kevin says, I saw a dyno video where E85 made higher oil temps versus race gas.
I don't know. I don't know on that one. I've never really measured that. I mean, I could go back and look at some of our logs that we've had. And see that, but I don't know.
I wonder if it's because it's a mix of fuel, right? Like you can see, like, all right, methanol. Normally, methanol makes it run cool because it burns cool, right?
It burns cool, yeah. But then it gets in the oil, and you got to run that super thick oil because then it just starts polluting it. I don't know. That's something I'm going to look into. I don't see how it would, but. Because it's not really mixing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fab Race Mon Repeat says most of us racers have switched back to gasoline once because of the frequent oil changes and the expense involved with the alcohol.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly the reason why a lot of people went back to like the Q16 or the C16 is because of that right there. Exactly. Oil change. You're changing the oil 3 times at the track over a weekend. For real. Depends on your power level, but yeah.
That's rough. And then see if it was me, I'd just be running junk. The Castrol now sells 2050 classic motor oil with tons of zinc in it, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I can't run anything like that because it's so damn thick that, I don't know. Maybe if I oil modded all the blocks, I probably could. The block, the timing cover, I bet you that would probably work a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, Uncle Squirrel was 3 down from that one. He was basically, I was talking about the evaporation of the fuel, cooling it and bringing it in. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. For the alcohol,
Huh.
Yeah, because it cools it down, condenses it, so it brings in more oxygen that way. That's how E85 and the alcohol and the methanol all works better.
Huh. I had no idea. That's really what it was doing. So Mostly Old Parts Ron says, does a closed chamber head have issues with improper swirl as compared to an open chamber head?
I personally have not had an issue with that because that's the only time you really is closed or open is when the piston is at TDC. Most of the time it's away from TDC. I've always had, like on my LAs and my Gen 3 Hemis, the Eagle head is a closed chamber head, and it outflows the 5.7, open chambered one. But I don't know on this one. I really couldn't tell you. I wouldn't see why it would, because it's just like in a camshaft. There's very
Well,
very
I
little
think
time.
in my application, I know the Buick stuff that I'm dealing with it's going to be pretty much the same no matter what, because the valves are actually recessed in their own little
pocket.
their pocket, right?
Yeah.
And it still has to swirl out from that. So now if it was flat, completely flat, and you had let's say a closed chamber surface, like a completely flat cylinder head, I could see where it would actually be beneficial because there's no shrouding whatsoever, right?
It's like a fire deck for like a diesel engine.
Right, but in this case, I think with the way this is set up, I don't think there's any gain or loss based on swirl, right? Because it's not shrouding the valve any more or any less than what it would have.
Yeah. This is one thing for a head expert would be the best on this one. I know. Yeah.
The Vizard probably would reign supreme in this setup.
Yeah, exactly.
This discussion. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So Levi's saying, when is a dual plug required for race gas motor? I have a set of junk LS heads to experiment with. I don't think you could get another plug in that head.
Yeah.
I doubt you could.
Yeah.
Let's just see, for the sake of it, that you could.
I would say over 15 and a half. I would say 16. Let's call it 16 to 1, because the amount of fuel and RPM too. Because remember, you got to have that flame kernel. It's only going to move so fast.
I don't think you will ever need a dual plug for a gasoline setup, and I'll tell you why. Okay, you're looking at volatility, right?
Yes.
And you get your compression so high that you need multiple sparks to make it occur. Okay, I don't think that you honestly, it would have to be a very big cubic inch engine, very big, and really high compression, right?
Really high compression.
Large volume with lots of fuel with very high compression.
Yeah, over 4.5 inch bore is what I would say.
I don't think it could happen with an LS, to tell you the truth.
No.
Now, what you could do is probably get a 6-liter, and then
Why don't you just buy a Hemi? It's already got it in it.
Yeah. I don't know. That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you what is amazing. The dual plug technology that's used on the Hemis, like that started in like the 80s or what was the 70s? The 70s.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was a Keith Black thing, I think, right? Now, a lot of it was just due to the blower with a bunch of nitro on it, right? But in the 80s, the Ford 2.3 liter ended up getting dual plugs. That's the first engine that I remember that had that. And it was
The Ranger, yeah.
It was to cure them blowing out the rear main seal somehow. Okay, that's
Really?
what I was told. Yeah.
I thought it was for spark knock, is what I was told. Because the angle of the valve, the spark plug that came in, it was at such an extreme angle. They put another one at the exact same extreme angle like this, and it was for spark knock. That's at least what I was told.
I was told to keep from blowing out the rear main seals, because the rear main seals would fail before, like, say, 100,000 miles.
Huh.
And that, which is kind of common, and a
Blow
lot
by.
of those 2.3s used to be. A lot of them were sticks back then. When people actually ordered a manual transmission car, because they didn't make an automatic that would actually fit behind those. They were so anemic. An automatic takes horsepower to run it. Okay,
Yeah.
It takes horsepower to run that pump. It takes horsepower to turn the whole assembly, and then you actually lose some to heat. A manual, you lose very little to nothing, because it's literally just turning some gears.
Once the fluid warms up. Yeah.
Right. When you're talking an engine that makes 100 horsepower and you put a tranny behind it that takes up 30 horsepower, you're sucking up 30%. Right.
You'll feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you've ever driven one of those 80s, 90s mini trucks, drive it down the road as fast as you can go and go turn the air conditioner on and see what happens.
Yeah.
You will lose 20 miles an hour. I guarantee it.
You'll feel it. Ooh, man. Yeah. I drove a Ford Ranger when I was doing the electrical work, and it was a 5-speed. In any hill, like if I was coming from El Cajon, on the 52, and you had to go up that grade to get out of El Cajon.
Right.
I was literally in third gear to the floor, and I was in
Wide open.
wide open to the floor, hazards on because I'm going to get run over by the trucks.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Yeah, those things just didn't have enough power. And see, that's when I first joined the Navy. I went out there in '95. I had a brand new '94 S10. I had a legit job, just like everybody else. I'm a real boy. I had a real man job. I was actually making interior pieces for Chryslers in a factory before that. And what had happened was I went to work one day, and our entire line had been sent to Mexico. And I'm like, oh, crap. It's only a matter of time before I don't have a job, right? Yeah. So let me start looking now. And I decided to, Navy was a good deal for me. But I had that 94 S10, and that thing was so anemic. And I mean a turd. They had went from a 2.5 liter Iron Duke to the 2.2 liter Turdmobile. And this thing, literally, the top speed was like 84 miles an hour. And you could barely speed in it. I mean, it was bad. And it was a no option, no frills, lightweight, Turdmobile. And it still had a tough time getting it done.
Wow.
All right. So Greg McDonald says, did Swirl port just make for a better burn? Did they worsen airflow through the heads?
No, because I remember the Chevys had those fast burn heads, and weren't they the Swirl port? I mean, that was for like a low compression deal.
The Swirl port, I think, was a low emissions deal, but the byproduct was it made more power.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's something that we would need to have Mr. Vizard on here for that, because I know a lot about heads, but I don't know about this. This is beyond.
Well, Swirl port. Okay, the first time I ever heard that term was Bob Glidden was using it in Pro Stock, and they had swirl ported the intake runner.
Wow!
Right, and the valve, the back of the valve and the runner. And instead of just going through straight, it's just like that pool cleaner thing you see on the commercials where it's like it starts spinning and it's so much more efficient. Well, it does. I mean, think about it. You take, you ever see the 2-liter bottle test where you make the tornado in the 2-liter bottle, but if you shake it up like this and get it going around and around in a circle, it actually just drops all the water pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I would have to say it's probably more efficient, but I don't know. Okay. Danny Boyd says, I drilled deep into a pair of GT40P heads and ended up with upstream air injection, which GT40Ps didn't come with.
He's saying that he broke through the intake
The
port.
casting.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. But some of those were drilled. I got a set from somewhere that were drilled. Doug Narden says, I just picked up a Mopar 383 Mallory YL dual point. Is it possible to make it vacuum advance?
I don't think so. Not on the dual point, because there's nowhere to hook the plate up to.
Yeah, I have 2 of those, and neither one of them is vacuum advance, and I don't think there's a place to even put the vacuum bubble on it.
No, there's not, because that's why the second points is right where that goes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Oh, you know what? Because that's a copy of, I want to say an early Ford Y-block distributor is what that's a copy of. That YL dual point.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a copy of the early Ford distributor. And back then, vacuum advance wasn't a thing in the 40s and 50s, right?
No, no one cared.
Yeah, they didn't even really consider it at the time. It was for fuel economy, and if you're the only one using the fuel, it's all yours. But the vacuum advance didn't come around. I don't think I ever seen it on anything from previous 55. I wonder when that did come around. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. And that's actually what I was just typing in.
Oh, well, Colleen was saying that Dave Vizard was talking about Swirl in a recent video. I'm assuming that's what she's talking about. Or the the chamber size or design. Let's see. First Responder Garage says, "Hello guys, I would think the E85 makes more power because of the speed of flame front. Being that it is faster, it is earlier in the stroke where the combustion chamber is less big. More PSI."
Yeah, that technically that is correct, but when you start putting RPM on it, you'll see that the E85, if you go to Engine Masters, they were doing this. The E85 will basically, at a certain point, you just can't RPM them past a certain point. And we noticed that on some of our dynos too, is that once you get up over like say 7,500 RPM, they were having a hard time. It was falling off a little faster. It was still making the same. It actually made more power, but then at the higher RPMs, it was falling off faster than say the higher octane gasoline. So that's the only thing, and I physically have seen that. But he is right. It does have a faster flame front.
See, Blaze Garage is saying, after watching Lake Speed Jr. interviewed last, I'm done using diesel oil for my flat tappet cam motors. Not me.
Not me either.
I haven't had any failures yet, so
yeah. Until I have a failure or a problem, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I don't trust the other oils where they say the zinc has been removed.
Yeah,
I don't trust them.
My mix is a T4, half T6 with that Lucas Oil zinc additive, and I mix it up in a gallon containers, and that's what I do. It works good.
I just go straight T6, and I don't put any Lucas Oil stuff in it at all.
Yeah, well, I think the T6 has only got like 1,100 ppm for zinc.
Oh, really?
And phosphorus, yeah. It's actually dropped down quite a bit lately.
It's supposed to be the bare minimum, but that sounds like even less than what I should be running.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, you really should be running the even the Cummins one, the Valvoline, the blue one. It's designed just for the Cummins. They actually took some of the zinc out of that because all the Cummins are flat tappets. So even in my Cummins, that's why I started adding it, because it's got that flat tappet cam in it.
Well, I've been putting STP in mine.
Really?
It's really high ZDDP, right? Mm-hmm. So I just pour the bottle of STP in, and it's good to go.
Oh, okay.
And let's see that. Okay, so I don't even know how to CS Toreri. Dallas, I run the Castrol Classic in my 70 GS350 in summer in New England. Good stuff.
Nice.
In the summer months, it probably won't make much of a difference because it's already fairly warm, right? And it only comes in 2050. And I try to stay away from it in the Buicks, especially when it's cold, because when you go to crank that up, that sucker will have 80 pounds of oil pressure until it gets some heat in it. So I imagine if it does have some miles on it and it's a little loose and it's already warm, you'll be okay.
I've been looking up this timing, this vacuum advance, as we've been talking here, and I don't know if this is correct, but it's saying in the mid-1963, Ford offered it on the FEV8. That's the first one I'm showing. And then in 67, Ferrari offered it, 72, Chryslers. That's what it's saying here. But I know it came out sooner than that on the Chryslers. So I don't know. Don't know.
Well, and like I said, I don't remember anything before the 1950s. Or, I mean, I want to say I seen it on like a 55 Chevy. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Is the early Chevrolet points distributors? Well, so Uncle Squirrel's saying, if memory serves me, I think the 2.3 Ford four-cylinder twin plug fired a few degrees apart from the first plug to the second plug, but I could be wrong. It's been a long time ago. And it may have been.
That's right. It is. It's exactly right. And there was actually two packs for them, and they were on two different sides. And that's what I thought they were firing at different timing for the
Are we just looking at
chamber
longer dwell?
Yeah, but they're on either side, so I think it was creating a flame front to go from one side to catch the other.
Right, it was canceling to the center, essentially.
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was to quench the cylinder.
I don't know. I mean, this is something I'm going to look into, but I do know that I was told it was, like I said before, it was for detonation because of the fuel got crappy, and that head was designed way back, way back when, and I don't think they did any work to it beyond that.
Yeah, I remember it was literally just designed for the Pinto, I believe.
Yeah.
But, okay, mostly old parts and rust. Patrick says, Professor P, what do you think about small block Mopar quench?
Always go for it, do it, because it's got like a semi. It's like a I don't call it a poly head, but they call it a semi Hemi. You know what I mean? It's got it's a wedge, but what do you call those? A pin style head?
What's that?
The small block Mopar, like the Magnum head.
No, it's a wedge head.
Yeah, it's a wedge head, but the plug is in the top. It comes down at an angle. It's not in the side like in a Chevrolet. It comes down at the top, like almost kind of like a Buick.
I don't know. It probably shares some of the specifics with the poly because that's what originally was designed to be on them.
Yeah, the poly had a canted valve on it. But as far as that, I've always liked the small block Mopar head. It's a really good head for what it is, and it really good on the exhaust side too. That's actually where the magic came in on those. But quench, I'm all about it.
What's the factory angle of the valves in the Mopar small block head?
It is. Oh man, you just don't tell me.
Like an 18 degree.
It's an 18 degree head, yes, because it's 20. Yeah, it's 23 on a Chevy. It's 18 degree on a Chrysler. Yeah. And it's actually it's everything that Chevrolet wants to be.
Well, the Buick is factory 15.
Oh well. It's even better.
I know, but that's where the problem comes in is the valves are so high in the chamber that you can't get any real large size valves in it at all. It really needs that design similar to like the poly Mopar where it's really like a canted valve setup or almost a hemispherical.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I gravitated to Mopars. I couldn't afford anything, so I had to deal with like factory stuff, and in factory form the small block Mopars are really good engine, 18 degree heads, shaft mount rockers, taller deck heights,
So we got a little bit of a clarification here. Danny Boyd saying, no, I drilled the head so that the smog pump would inject air into the rearmost cylinders and the car would pass the scan code with all 11s. I drilled and tapped to mount the upstream air tube too. Okay, so I was familiar with this because I've seen this before. I owned a set of GT40Ps that came from, I bought an entire motor when I was on deployment. I ordered it from the Netherlands, right? Where did that place? Yeah, I ordered a motor from the Netherlands. It was cost me like $25 a minute to call them to tell them what I wanted. But I can't remember. It was for my daily driver, which was my '88 Thunderbird at the time. Is it Coast High Performance? Is that a Ford place? Coast High Performance? And they had drilled the heads for the emission stuff. They were already drilled, and I have seen those before. But so he's saying he drilled down through the accessory bolt holes in the rear of the heads to right over the rearmost exhaust port. Then I drill up from the roof of the ports into the passage I had just created.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a lot of drilling and a lot of tedious work. Yeah. But if you get it, I guess if it's centered on the bolt hole, you don't really have much to worry about. Because those things have like a thread cert that goes in them anyway. Mm-hmm. Yep. Tony's Hot Rod Garage says, what's the claim that diesel oil is bad? I've never had a problem.
I didn't watch the video, but I was told to watch it, but I don't know. I've run it, and I've sent it off to labs, my oil, and it comes back just fine. So I don't know. I really don't know.
Here's some irony for you. Okay, so Levi's Backyard Performance is saying we're working with Schaefer's Oil for a sponsor. They are giving us a small discount, but said there's a possibility of future real deal sponsorship. I've been chasing Schaefer Oil for I think 2 years. 2 years. The other one was Baldwin Filters. And the reason why I got all these written here on a post-it note on my desk because I literally call them every year. Every year when racing season's starting, I call them or send them an email because they are made in America products, and I try to use nothing but a made America stuff, right? And so Schaefer Oil, Baldwin Filters, Cato Oil and Grease Company, runs Mystic Oils, Automotive, Weld Racing, and then Taylor Vertex. Those are the American-made companies that I know of. There's also a few more, like March. Howard's Cams is one of them. Who's that lifter company? It's not Johnson anymore. It's
Johnson High Lift.
It might be.
Yeah, you have Johnson and Johnson High Lift. They're literally across the river from each other.
Probably the same owner. But now there's another one. Who does the hydraulic the hydraulic roller lifters now? Begins with an M, right?
Oh, Morel. Yeah,
They're American made, right?
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Craig Chitto saying diesel oil is cheap if you're changing the oil frequently. It's great that they sell SA30 in the diesel oil brands. Both are great for small engines.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go watch that thing on Lake Speed then. I mean, if everyone's kind of saying this, I've never had an issue.
So 30 POS Racing saying I've heard a lot of diesel oils are going back to lower zinc content due to converter foul. Yeah, due to converter. And that's what got rid of the zinc in the conventional motor oils was the catalytic converters were getting plugged up with essentially the burn off of the zinc.
Yeah, and what I do with my mix is I get one of those Lucas Oil zinc additives, and I put I have half the T6, half the T4, and then 1/4 of that bottle into a gallon, and that is a good mix. And I've sent it off to labs, and it comes back after I've used it, and the zinc is still at like 16 ppm, and the phosphorus is high too, which is good. That's the stuff you're wanting there. That's to help the lubricity. So,
So Danny Boyd saying that the last Fox Mustang 4-banger's got that dual plug arrangement too. I couldn't tell you. I imagine it's the same engine as what was in the Ranger.
Probably. Yeah.
Frank Parks is saying that Scott's 37 Chevy has vacuum advance from Cold War Motors.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, I don't know if that was a standard thing on American cars or not. I remember seeing some distributors that and I'm almost certain I read somewhere that YL dual point from Mallory is a copy of an early Ford distributor, and it's just modified to make it work on any car. Matter of fact, it's the same cap, I believe.
Let's see. First, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try to reword it. I'm actually curious now. Oh, same things pop up. Yeah, I'm over it. I'll find it later.
So Kevin saying my pops left behind a few cases of Aeroshell 1550. I wonder if it's high ZDP for aircraft. Was thinking of using it up. Bad idea. I tell you what I would do. If you want to know what it is, look it up online, see if you can find anything. Mm-hmm. If you can't find anything on it, pour a little bit in a cup, send it off to one of those testing labs, and they'll tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's like $25. It's really it's inexpensive, and they give you a little container. You fill it up, you put it in a little bag, and you send it off. I actually got the idea from that. What's that guy's Project Farm? That guy, Project Farm.
Yeah, Project Farm.
Yeah, and it's really simple. It takes about a week or so, and it comes back maybe 2 weeks now. But yeah, so.
All right. What? Let's see. 38 POS Racing Dallas. What would be the best factory big block Buick head for a mild street car? Okay, so if you're talking factory heads, are you wanting? I guess easy to come by is the answer here, right?
Right.
Okay, because the best, in my opinion, the best factory head made is probably the Big Port LeSabre head, the 67, 68 Big Port head, but they're prone to cracking apparently. Then it's probably the Stage 1 head after that, because these were made in larger numbers than fewer, but then, like your Stage 2, which was like 200 sets, right, or whatever it was. Some stupid, some that I'll never see in my lifetime or own, actually, because I've seen them. I just have never owned them. Now, if you're wanting to know what's the best thing you could possibly do, I think essentially the 70 head, 67 through 70 head, any one of those heads that you get is probably the best you're going to be able to get. 71 kind of falls in there too. I wouldn't be afraid of a 71 head. They got a little bit larger chamber, but you can always mill that sucker down or deck the block. But here's the ticket. If you put stage 1 valves on one of those heads, they really don't do crap. Okay? The port is what's limiting that head. So what I think, if you're going to take them and have a head built, put together, it's still considerably cheaper than buying an aftermarket aluminum head. Get yourself a 67 to 70 casting. Take it in and have bronze guides put in it and put 11/32 valves in there. Okay? And all you did was open the chamber size just a little bit more. But if you spend the money to buy a good valve that's 11/32 and then it's already been cut down on the back, it'll probably outflow the stage 1 head by a considerable amount. And then you don't have a lot of money in that cylinder head either. Now, if you wanted to go crazy, then you do a little bit of bull work and you're going to run all over that stage 1.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that's what I do on a Slant 6 is I take the stock valve, I just back cut the valve, and then I pocket port. I just do a little bit of bowl cleanup, and I'll pick up 20 CFM just by doing that.
I think that's the easiest, simplest way to do it is go to 11/32. Now, if you want to get really into it, because you're going to buy valves anyway, and you're going to put guides on them anyway, if you want to chance it, go down to an 8mm valve like they use in an LS motor, and see what happens. You're not turning that Buick big RPM like you are that LS motor. Right?
Yeah, but it's the seat pressure that breaks those valves. That's what breaks them. Is that thing stopping? I'd run a nice beehive spring or conical. Cut off some of that weight.
And if you wanted to try all that out, and I could do a beehive spring with an 8mm valve, which is an 8mm stem, right? You still got. That's the interesting part is I believe there's an LS motor with 2-inch intake valves, which is the same exact size as the Buick, and then on the exhaust side, I want to say that it's exactly the same size as the big block on the exhaust side, but use some LS valves, cut them down, put some good beehive valve springs on there, and give her hell.
Yeah. Just checking the storm, the tornado watch.
Levi says that Schaefer Oil is about an hour and 50 minutes from him.
Yeah. So we have in this area Driven. Driven's right across the parking lot from us. I'll go get some information from them.
Is that the Joe Gibbs oil?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. It's I don't know anything about it. But what I'll do is I'll have one of those. How about this? I'll see if one of those guys want to come on here to our tech talk. How bitchin' would that be?
That would be cool.
Yeah, why not?
No, Danny Boyd, it's the small Dizzy cap. It's not the Durspark. It's pre-Durspark.
My MSD distributor cap is an early Chevrolet points distributor cap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, 38 POS Racing was the LeSabre head on a 430. Yes, but it was only certain things. The big port 430 head came on like Wildcat, Riviera, and Electra, I think. I think Electra 225 got him. And that was about it. But you need to look at Team Buick, teambuick.com on, I think it's what it is, just Google it, Team Buick, and they'll come up and you can get some head part numbers and you can find the heads. The big ports are easy to identify because on the outside of the head is what looks like it looks like it has a runner on there for like a EGR, and it looks like it maybe is milled off to put an EGR valve or something on them. So they look different than the later Buick big block heads. 455 Buick didn't come along. Correct. Yep. 70 was the first model, or was the first year of the 455. Previous that was the 430 Buick. This is the same engine, just a smaller bore. Okay. So 6% recycled says, any cam ideas for a Jeep 4-liter straight 6? So the first thing I'm going to ask is, what are you going to use this engine for?
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. Also, too, second question, you said Jeep 4-liter. I believe it was in 89 and 88. There was a crossover where it was a Jeep AMC engine, then went to a Chrysler. I believe the AMC cams you can get, the Chrysler ones you cannot, and they're regrinds. I believe, or it's vice versa. It's one of the two. It's been a while since I messed with those things, but as far as what you're using it for, that's really the big deal. Is it going to stay a 4-liter, or is it going to be a 4.7? Are you going to put a stroker in it, and is this going to be a rock crawler or whatnot? There's so much information I need on that, on the Jeep, on that 4-liter. Yeah, that's one of those things you can't just give a number on that one. But if you want, send this one to slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Give me your whole setup, and then just tell me what you're going to do with it, and then I'll give you some numbers, and I guarantee it'll work just fine.
So what's funny is Tony's Hot Rod Garage is saying LS valves are the hot ticket in FE Fords now too. And it's because it's a good valve. It's a well-engineered valve. Mm-hmm. Kevin also says that Driven is a great oil, but $10 a quart, it's a little high for me.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, as far as numbers I did a lot of this stuff when I was at the other cam company for that AMC. Some basic numbers on that is, God, do I hate these things? But 194,204 on a 112 is basically 1,500 to 4,000 RPM as far as your RPM, and the red line's at 4,250. And then the next step up is 208 on a 112, and that's about 18 to about 4,500. And then you get into the big stuff, 212, 218, 112, and that's going to be like 2,000 to 5,000. But remember, 2,500 is where that thing's really going to start coming on. So if this is any rock crawling, I would go small.
For the low end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Well, here's something that's interesting. Okay. Blaze Garage says, I have a 98 GMC Suburban with a 454. It's got California emissions, 3 catalytic converters here in North Carolina. It goes exempt. Would you go dual exhaust or single exhaust, and what size?
I can answer this. I had this exact same setup in my motorhome. My motorhome was a Chevrolet. It had basically a Gen 6 454, so it was a hydraulic roller with the fuel injection on it. And when we got out here, the first thing I did was chucky and cut off the cats, and I went dual exhaust to a muffler that went into one, and then I went and got a GMC truck diesel exhaust, so it was a single 4-inch exhaust.
How you steal my idea, man?
What? That's what I did, and it worked beautifully because the muffler, I got one of those cheap ones from Summit Racing. It was just a generic version. It was a muffler, and it worked absolutely bitchin'. So I just ran the factory exhaust minus the cats, came back, and then I went from a 2 to a 1, and then big exhaust, and then right out the side, and it worked absolutely flawless.
So when I was in California, I started building this white Ford F-250. Mm-hmm. And Shane can attest, we went and picked it up from this farm, and then I had it running when it about 5-6 months, had it running and driving, right? And it was my daily then at that point. But I got on there and I was like, I had built this 351 Windsor, and I had a 393 in the works, and all I did was re-ring and re-bearing the 351 that was in it, and started working on that 393. So I knew I was going to go bigger. So I started looking at dual exhausts, and man, Gibson made some really cool stuff, right? It was like $600 for a dual exhaust system that came in a box I had to install, right? And I'm like, man, what are my options? So I started looking around, and I didn't find anything. And I thought, well, you know what? My Power Stroke diesel truck I had was like this, and it had a lot of exhaust. So I looked. They had a 4-inch MBRP, or it was either MBRP or Diamond Eye or something like that. Yeah. Exhaust system, 4-inch mandrel bent with a bus muffler, right? Fit like a glove. That's what I bought. $200. I'm like, man, if if I can't make it work with a 4-inch single pipe, life is horrible for me. And right now, I'm telling you right now that I got it on the truck and it's been on there 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
Hasn't rusted out. It's actually fairly quiet, believe it or not. It's not bad, and it pulls like there's no tomorrow. That's what I like about it.
My mileage actually went up. It was actually like 6 miles to the gallon in that motorhome. When I put that on there, it went up to about 10 to 11, and that's almost doubling it. So you're going almost twice as far. So, what I did on my motorhome, it was a van chassis dual. So you just found a van chassis that had the same wheelbase, and it literally bolts right in. Right. All the hangers are there and everything.
So your 98 Suburban, lucky you, because you could have got a 6.5 turbocharged turbo diesel on that 98, and I guarantee you they make an exhaust system that's close enough that you can hack something together.
Yep.
And it'll be cheap. It'll outflow that whatever else you got on there now, and it'll probably actually look and fit really well because it's a single pipe. Yeah. So
and look at the Summit versions. The Summit ones are like just a no-name knockoff. And they're cheap. They're like $200, $250 to your door, 4-inch pipe, and all the hangers are there.
Tony's Hot Rod Garage brings up something here. At Kevin, with most moderate engine builds knocking on $10,000, I'll run the best oil for the job regardless of brand or cost. Yeah. And I'm kind of with this guy right here because there is nothing wrong with buying insurance when it's not so much the price of the engine, it's the machine work now. It's the labor work, right?
And the quality of the machine work, you got to find it. And then when you find the guy, he's always busy. So then it takes 4 or 5 months. Right. But I agree with him. Whenever it's an engine that I'm building, like my Gen 3 Hemi that I'm going to be running, I'm going to be running the best oil I can at that point for that. But in my Slant 6s that I just, in my Cummings, and all my generators and all the stuff that I have that's flat tappet, I just mix my own oil and throw it in there and call it good. But I agree with him on the $10,000 deal. Yes.
All right. Well, so we're kind of caught up now, which is surprising. Yeah. So most little parts and ruts. Patrick says, "Hey Doug, we got a '67 Olds 425 out of a front wheel drive to put on my wife's '68 442. It's a screamer, 380 horsepower, 420 foot-pounds of torque. I bet you that sucker is a badass. The 425 is, in my opinion, there's 2 engines that Oldsmobile made that both of them were destined for greatness. The 330 and the 425. And both of them, ironically, came with a steel crank, and those were the only Oldsmobiles that did, apparently. But those are my 2 favorites, and that 425 is a hoss. That thing is a monster.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tony's Hot Rod Garage says, I did an exhaust system upgrade on a buddy's Cummins last year, years ago, and ended up putting the stock 4-inch system behind my LA 360. I bet it worked great.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a great thing. I was actually looking at my motorhome, and it was starting to rust out, here. And I was just like, and that's how I came up with the diesel exhaust. I was like, dude, that's what I did. It was great.
So Lake Speed Junior, we're talking, this is supposed to say Lake Speed Junior, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lake Speed Junior says you're paying for the additive package on all oils.
Yeah.
I don't know who Lake Speed Junior is. I'm not going to lie. I know of Lake Speed. That used to be a guy that ran NASCAR, and he was like the last true blue-collar guy to run NASCAR as long as I can remember.
I think I've met him one time. He was I think he worked for Driven. He's like really a kind of an oil guru kind of guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't want to overspeak. I think he did work for Driven at one time. I'm not sure, maybe. But yeah, he does a lot of videos on like oil and oil packages and so on and so forth. So he's a good guy. Yeah.
So Craig Chitto says that's his father. Okay, so I don't know who. I have not met Junior. I've never seen him on anything, and apparently since everybody's ringing this dude's bell and blowing his horn, like it's like this is a soccer match, But I don't know who this guy is. Maybe he's got it all there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he does know a thing or two. He does like speeches for like Engine Performance Expo, Competition Plus, Engine Builder Magazine. I mean, he does a lot of that kind of stuff.
Oh, so he's a consultant.
Yeah, well, yeah, he does. I mean, he does everything. He does stuff for NASCAR type of. I mean, he does a lot of different things. So yeah.
Mostly old parts. Ron Ward says, on the subject of changing combustion chamber volume, what's the best way to determine what heat range plug you need when your combination has different heads and pistons than with factory equipped?
Okay, I can. This is right up my alley. I start at the bottom. I start with the coldest plug whenever I'm tuning, and I work my way up until it stops fouling. That's exactly how I do it. On my Slant 6, I started at a 60. The 66 is the factory one. I started at a 64, and I went up to a 65, and 65 is the one I did. I always start with the coolest and work my way up, and then just keep looking at the plug, and you'll tell if it's too cool just by looking at it. You know, there's plenty of pictures now online, and just get one of your little magnifying glasses to look at it.
The one thing that I'm always when it comes to plugs.
Mm-hmm.
The rule of thumb I always went with, the hotter the plug, the more power it'll make. Okay, but the easier it is to detonate. All right, and I'm like Shane, but I keep going. I keep going till I haven't changed anything, and it starts to spark knock, and I take it one down.
Step back. Yeah, I just go until it, because spark plugs are, on the Slant 6 are suck with the drool tubes on them, because you got to take off the little washer, so it's a pain in the butt. So I try to just go up until, okay, there it is, that's the one. But yes, I've done it all the way up till it spark knocks and then back down. But yeah.
Well, that's the way I was taught to do it. Like if you're trying to get maximum performance out of your combination, that's what you do. But you start with the coldest plug and work your way up.
Yeah, and also too, the hotter they are, they're self-cleaning then too, so they'll last longer.
The other thing is, you want to do it with the same brand plug. Okay, don't go out and buy, like, all I got's Autolights, and then okay,
Bosch
here's
Platinums.
Yes,
Right.
And it may not work out for you, buddy, but because generally when you change, what's funny is, like, say you got your recommended having Autolight, 3942s, okay, and you're like, well, you know what, I'm going to change to a different plug because I don't like these Autolights. They're Chinesium now, because they are. All right. Mm-hmm. And we did some videos on that where we were breaking the ceramics on them so easy, it was stupid. I literally dropped the box, and I opened the box up, and the thing was freaking coming out in pieces. They're that weak now. But let's say you wanted to change to a different plug, so you just go find the equivalent NGK, and you go get yourself an NGK plug, because I'm a firm believer in NGK. I don't mess around with Champion. I don't mess around with none of them ones that used to be the thing to go to, and then their technology stopped. See, that's the only thing that's killed the American-made plug manufacturers, is that they felt they were the king of the hill, and they stopped doing development. They really didn't do anything beyond what they had before, and maximize the profits. Okay, when you start maximizing the profits, you start minimizing the product, and that's kind of what was happening. So NGK, good damn plug. It's the Japanese haven't sold us out on any plugs yet, so I go with the NGK. But you might find that you need a heat range warmer or a heat range colder.
And NGK works in reverse. Just remember that.
Works in reverse.
Yeah, so the lower the number, the hotter the plug.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So like in Autolights and Champions, the higher the number, the hotter the plug. In NGK, it's reversed.
Huh. So Blaze Garage is saying that Lake Speed Junior works for Total Sale.
Okay, so it works for Total Sale.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go. Kevin's asking a question. Two back.
This one?
Right there. Yep. Under my 66 Dart, I have just basically the springs moved in on that one, and then just the factory tub, where you just kind of go to the frame rails on that. I can put a 29.5, 10.5, 15 on that car and still have plenty of room. I can get my fingers all the way around on both sides. I prefer the 28, 10, 50, but the 29.5 will fit just fine in that car. So yeah, and then all my cars are basically like that. And those are all darts. 66, the 68. Now the 69 is a Slant 6 car, so the 225 is more than enough for that. I could barely spin that.
So here's a question. Michael
Sure.
Roberts asks, on small block Ford Windsors, how does Crane rocker arms compare to Harlan Sharp rockers besides the $200 difference?
I know nothing about Harlan Sharp rockers or Crane rockers. I couldn't tell you on that one.
Well, you guys doesn't your company own Crane now, right? So
Yeah, I think, but it's kind of being phased out. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know. I didn't design any of them or build any of them, so I don't have. I mean,
I'm assuming. So what you're asking about is, okay, there's a couple of ways to go about this on small block Ford Windsors. Harlan Sharp rockers are generally pretty pricey. They're proud of them, okay, and I'm assuming that they're the $200 more rock arm. The Crane rockers actually they had a set that were factory produced Ford 351 Windsor trunnion style rockers, which came on the 93 Cobra and 94 95 Cobra with a 5-liter in them. They're a 1.71 ratio, and they were the Crane Cobra roller rockers. You used to be able to get them for a pretty reasonable price, like $85 or $100. They weren't expensive, but they're a trunnion style rocker arm. And so they used that trunnion with this real small bolt to hold them down. Now, if you want something with some serious spring pressure, you probably don't want a trunnion style rocker. And I would definitely, when it comes to stuff like this, I don't cheap on none of it. If it's even questionable, if it's made in Taiwan or China, I don't end up buying any of it, right? I'll go to like the main manufacturers, the Crowder, the Comp, that way you're getting a quality product. Because I mean, let's think of it. Worst case scenario. A lot of people cheap out on stuff, but they don't think about worst case scenario, right? That's how you always have to think about it when you're going to compromise on something. When you're going to compromise, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, I buy a cheap set of rockers, right? And what happens? My rocker arm breaks, and then I drop a valve, right? And then it eats a piston.
Yep.
And then my head's junk, my block's junk, my pistons and rods are junk. About the one thing that's salvageable is most likely the crank and the intake manifold, right?
Yeah.
And so that's worst case scenario. So, I try to think of worst case scenario because my luck would have it, I'd have worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
Always.
That's how it always works for me. I'm never the guy that can build the junk and it hang together. I tried, building race motors out of junk stuff from the junkyard and spraying them to death, and I was blowing them up every week. And it wasn't the tune-up; it was just you're using inferior old junk stuff, right?
Right.
And there's a reason why it's in the junkyard. Let's see here. Michael Schmidt asks, hone jobs with cast rings of 50s, 60s, and 70s, is there a such thing as plateau honing, or is that for the newer ring styles only? Is there a difference in procedure for plateau honing versus cast, or for cast versus newer rings? Are you familiar with plateau honing, Shane?
No, I've always done it by cross hatching.
That's exactly how I do it. And I vary speed of the drill and how fast I move my arm up and down to get the crosshatch where I want it. And most guys will be like, that is so booger-eating redneck. I take it somewhere and I spend $300-$400 on a machine shop to have it done. Dude, guess what? How they used to do molly rings before they had that machine. Just like that.
Basically, this is what I would do. 45 degrees is the most common angle. Some people prefer 20 and 30 degrees for the crosshatch for like low tension style of oil rings. If you have like a really long stroke, I've seen people go all the way up to like, I think it's 60 degrees, because just for piston speed. But that's really it. I've never really heard of the plateau honing. Maybe that's beyond me. I don't know. But yeah, I prefer, everyone always talks about like WD-40. I'm kind of a big fan of the ATF because it's a high detergent and it's also kind of lubricity. Plus, I use ATF for cleaning. I use ATF and acetone for breaking parts loose. Bolts. I mean, that's so.
ATF has just gotten so expensive right now, right?
Is
I
it?
don't. Oh my god!
I got
man.
3 cases sitting out there that I bought that I've just been storing.
I don't even mess around with it. You couldn't even find it for a little while.
Really?
Yeah, about a year ago, you couldn't even find it. So it was like, dang, man, where the hell is all this stuff going? But I do the WD-40 thing for honing an engine block.
Okay.
But I'll tell you how my cheap ass figured it out. Okay. You know how you buy like the can of WD-40 and it lasts a month, right? Yeah. Or if you're doing a hone job, one hone job. Mm-hmm. I bought the can with the actual grip spray nozzle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not refillable, but all I did was take my Dremel and I cut that lock ring off of it, and then I took the whole top off, and then I bought that 1 gallon bottle or the gallon replacement can of WD-40, and I just fill that sucker up, and I just keep filling it, and I'm probably on my 5th gallon now through that 1 spray bottle. And it costs like a fraction of regular WD-40 price doing it that way.
That's exactly what I do. Is I have one of those that's a little container, and you pressurize it. You fill it. You take the top off. You fill it up, and then you put the lid back on it. You pressurize it. That's actually how I do my WD-40. So it doesn't come in a can anymore. It's one of those little spray. It's like an actual can that you pressurize.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, go one below that. Let's Clayton's toolbox.
Okay,
all right.
Ford 460 521 versus Ford 351 Windsor 408 in a 2,800 pound car. Which would you think would be faster? Oh man,
because remember, faster is different than quicker. Faster is mile an hour. Quicker is time. I'm going to go with the 521 for the faster version because you're going to be able to use all that torque to get the mile an hour.
I'll tell you what I know, okay? And this isn't dogging on 521 or 460 Fords or anything like that. It's actually a testament to how much the cylinder head technology has come along on the 351 Windsor or the Windsor engine family, okay? When we were in San Diego and Shane and I were racing in Verona, there was actually 2 Mustangs out there. One was built by a guy named Larry Thweet out of his garage, right? And he's an old retired mechanic, and he built this Mustang using leftover junk parts, and it had a 351 Windsor. I think it was a 393 based Windsor motor. And you built him a cam at Crowder, right?
Yep.
And then there was another Mustang out there. I can't remember what color it was, but it ran a 460. And Larry Thweet's home-built junkyard turd would run all over that 460 Mustang.
Well, remember, I helped him tune that thing, though, too. He picked up a full second with camshaft and setting the carburetor and getting the suspension set up. So there was a lot more to that.
Sure, but what I'm getting at is the heavy weight of that 460 motor in that short wheelbase Fox body Mustang really hindered that thing from doing anything special at the drag strip. It really did. Now that 351 Windsor, considerably lighter. It's not making the same amount of torque, but it's making 3/4 of it, and
Freaking RPM, but
it did run good.
Yes, it did. But remember, we're still talking 1/8 mile, and we're talking faster. So whenever I'm thinking faster, that's mile an hour, and that would be 1/4 mile. So the 521, you could carry a taller gear. So the 408 would definitely get the
dig
first
it out of the
1/8
hole.
mile.
Yeah, it get it out of the hole pretty good.
Yeah, but that 521 would just basically come around it on the top end. That's what I'm thinking. But if it was quicker, I would go the other way. I would go the 351 Windsor with the 408. But if it's faster, I'm going with the 521.
Dick Dastardly, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly says, we unhooked the airbox on our 2001 Ram at the drag strip. It went a whole second faster.
The 201, that's the 4.7, isn't it? I think that's the 4.7.
2001, I believe was the last years of the LA engines. Yeah,
Could be a Magnum. I don't know. I remember the 4.7. I was like, holy crap, the 4.7 actually survived the drag strip. I'm
Mostly old parts and rust. Patrick says, what brand of oil do you mix up?
Oh, the Rotella T. I used the T6 and the T4. You know what? I did a video on this, but I'll tell you. It's I run T6 and T4, and then what I do is I have another container, and then I basically pour half and half. So it's a half mix of, basically you're getting a synthetic blend. So you're getting a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then I take the Lucas oil container, I forget the ounce on it, and then I use a quarter of that per gallon, and that seems to be good, and that gets me right at about 1,600 ppm parts per million on the zinc, and it's a good mix. I run that in my generator, my pressure washer, all the engines that I have, except for the wife's Jeep. I run the Pennzoil on that.
Jason Cicerone says, would you change the plug in one cylinder until you find the plug that works, then change the rest? Is that okay? I guess if you're doing Shane's method to where it's you're just looking at plug foul,
yeah,
right?
Fine.
It'll be fine. Yeah, and then you get kind of in the ballpark. If you're doing it on detonation, you'll never know which cylinder's doing it.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, you might see it on the plug when it's detonating.
Yeah,
but
if it's detonating real bad, you're going to see some of it on the plug.
you'll start to see aluminum on the plug. You'll be like, that's bad.
Yeah, see, Michael Schmidt's saying the same thing that I did here. For big block Chevy comp cam gold rockers, mine are 20 years old. Since they are aluminum, should I change them to new ones just because, or are they forever rockers if in good visual condition under 6,000 RPM? I'd run them until you start seeing the cracks.
Yeah, they'll actually start to on the end where the pin goes through for the wheel. You'll actually start to see that elongate on the aluminum, because you can only cycle aluminum so many times before it becomes soft. But that's where you'll start to see it is on that end of it, on the rocker end where the wheel's at. That's where you'll see it start to get funky. And also too, you'll notice, because you're like, man, I just set the lash and it's out again, and then you go out driving, you get one that makes noise, and you're like, you're setting the lash again. Take that rocker off, because that usually means that rocker's on its way out, if it's not the lifter.
I had bought a set of comp. They were black for a small block Ford for Windsor, but I bought them probably 20 years ago. But still going today.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fab Race Mod Repeat saying Crane is out of business.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, when I first got here, they had a department for cranes still, and I just don't see it anymore. So.
Danny Boyd said, I have them Crane Cobra rollers. They were $15 a piece back in 2015 or whenever I got them. Yeah, I have a set I got in 2003 that are on my white Ford truck. They probably have 200,000 miles on them. And they're starting to clatter now, because I imagine they're starting to get worn out. But I'm running them until they start breaking or falling off or whatever they do. So...
yeah, under the Edelbrock guys now, it's Edelbrock, Comp, TCI, Fast, and Russell. That is everybody under our umbrella right now.
I wonder how much longer Fast is going to be around.
I don't know.
They haven't made any new products here recently, so I'm kind of wondering.
What's funny is I run their stuff and it's so good.
I've never owned it. I just noticed that I haven't seen anything new come out from them. Let's see. Well, maybe they don't need anything new. But Tony's Hot Rods Garage says, I won't put the Chinesium shit in my engines. If it's mine, I don't want the headache. If it's a customer's, I don't want to look like an ass. I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, I don't have so many customers, but I don't like to take the chance, right?
Yeah.
And think of how bad things could be, right? Oh, it's not too big of a deal. I'm saving $40 on a timing chain. All right, how bad can that be? You can bend every valve.
That's right. Engine comes apart. You could break a block,
Oh, geez. Is it worth the $40? Now, I have run into a problem where the only reproduction big block Buick oil pans that I can find are Chinese. This even TA carries them. That's the one I got from them. So... man, I think there's some of that stuff, there's no way around it. But it is just an oil pan. So as long as it's a bladder that holds oil, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. Just
if it
steal
doesn't
at that
rust. If it doesn't rust.
I modify every oil pan I have just for oil control. That's all I do, you know.
Hey, you know what? Tony's Hot Rod Garage says something pretty interesting here. I use
I've done this
ATF cut with diesel fuel for honing oil.
Yeah. That's how I
God,
clean.
it's got to stink though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does stink, but the diesel oil is really great, magical stuff. One of my first jobs, I was working at a wrecking yard, and we would start the engines up before we'd pull them out. We'd get them nice and hot, and then we would drain the oil out of them, and then we would leave the oil that's in the filter, and then we would put, like, say, 3 or 4 quarts of diesel into the crankcase. And we would start them up, and you don't rev them, you just let them run, and it literally cleans out the whole engine, all the carbon and all that crap that's sitting there. It just basically takes it all out and breaks it down, and it blows it right out the bottom. And it works well. I actually did that with Lisa's car.
Can't you do that with like standard weight oil, like SAE 30 or something? Because they got really high detergent.
Yeah, well, the diesel is really thin, but it's a really thin oil, and it works. You try it sometime. Get a piece of carbon from one of your engines and just get some diesel, put it on it, and you'll see it. It breaks down. It literally just disintegrates it. It's actually really cool. Yeah, so it works bitchin'. So, yeah, I've tried this before too. Diesel fuel and ATF. I just like running the ATF. I warm up the ATF, and then that's how I hone it, is with the ATF. I just like the detergent properties of it.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, ATF and acetone is magic. It is. I'm telling you, that is, you want the best penetrating oil on planet Earth. ATF and acetone, 50-50 mix, works awesome.
Let's see. Danny Boyd's saying Rip Crane. Okay, so I'm trying to catch up right now, and a lot of it just seems to be everyone kind of chatting amongst themselves. Craig Chitto's saying, anyone ever see 4.6 Ford eat spark plugs pulled out threads with no electrode? Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's common. In
that
fact,
was
they
that engine.
Yeah, they actually have a TSB on this where the plugs, the threads weren't long enough, and you could just re-tap the threads while the head's still on it, and then they sell a plug now that's got thread the whole way. I used to do this at my house. I used to charge, it was 8 hours labor just to do the plugs, and I would charge like $400 per one of these that would blow out, and I didn't have to take the head off. I would just do it right on the head. You know, with the head still on the engine is what I meant to say.
Huh.
Yeah, you just pack the threads. I still have the kit too. It's really awesome. It goes right there, and it centers itself on the hole, and then you just goes right through, and then you just pack it full of grease and catches them all, and that's that. Hey, John Wilburn showed up. What's up, John?
Man, you know he's up at Cope's place this week.
Oh, he's playing 904 stuff. He's playing tranny stuff. Awesome.
Yeah. Yep, John Wilburn's doing trannies today. So.
He's stripping trannies right now.
Yeah. It's the only place you can strip trannies and bang a couple hookers around without getting any trouble.
Right. That's funny. Boom, 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 boom. Are we going down?
I'm trying to catch up right now. It seems like everybody's kind of just chatting amongst themselves. See, John says A999 build is going great. It was a mess to clean up, but the reassembly is cruising.
Yeah, those things go together so awesome, man. I just 904 is the greatest transmission around. That's just my opinion for us type of people, you know.
Yeah, Big Belly Racing's asking, is it okay to run Rotella in small block or big block Mopar? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, flat or roller cams.
It won't make any difference. Yeah. The only thing I don't like about that's the reason why I mix it is because it's the 1540. I run the 540 mixed with it because I just try to thin it out slightly. Other than that, as long as you start it up and just kind of and let it warm up, it'll be just fine.
Let's see. Okay, so they're saying don't mix synthetic. Well, Doug Narden saying don't mix synthetic ATF with acetone.
Yeah, you got to use regular ATF. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't use synthetic ATF anyways. I just keep the regular ATF anyways. But yes, he's right. I should have said that.
And so 38 POS says Racing says early V10 Fords were known for losing plugs. There wasn't enough thread in the port.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. It was only half. It was this much thread, that much, and it should be this much, and it would just literally blow them out. It would blow out and it would hit the hood, and it would usually take out the coil at the same time because the coil bolt's right on top.
All right. Well, here's something that's holds a special place in my heart. I don't know how many of these trucks I've had. Probably like 8. Mm-hmm. But 97 Suburban 5.7. I have 200,000 on it, and it's a keeper. It needs a head gasket job and an intake gasket job. Oh, yeah. I know it's going to have an intake gasket on it because they go about every 100,000. Would you rebuild the stock heads? What upgrades would you do while in there? Okay. This is a Vortec motor, right? This is the Vortec Chevrolet with the well-known Spider EFI intake stuff on it. What a turd. They do run good, but man, do they have their one downfall. And that's the intake manifold gasket blows out around the water ports because it's got some stupid plastic intake manifold gasket that after like 11 cooling cycles and heating cycles, it falls apart. So this thing here, if it was me and I was doing it, because I've done 3 or 4 of these now, what I used to do is I'd take the intake manifold off, I'd take the stock head off, and they started having problems with that Vortec head cracking. Okay, and I would take it to the machine shop and I would have it checked for cracks, and then I would have it completely gone through. Now, if you're wanting to alleviate that whole thing from ever having to do it again, buy yourself a good Vortec replacement aluminum cylinder head, and you never have to worry about that again. The intake manifold gasket, you're gonna have to do that every 100,000 miles. That's just kind of the norm. Oh, hold on a second. I see something down here. So Michael Schmidt, hang on before I give you bad info. Tony's Hot Rod Garage says Philpro has a steel core gasket for those now, Dallas. So if I was you, I would check those heads, make sure they're not cracked, have them rebuilt. If they are cracked, buy a good set of aluminum ones so you don't have to deal with it again, and then put some of them damn Philpro steel core gaskets in there, and you never have to worry about it again. And then if it's never had the spider replaced on the EFI, take that out and put that GM replacement spider assembly in there it doesn't get rid of anything, but it's less prone to clogging. And then that thing will have 150 more horsepower than what it had when you pulled in the driveway. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Oh, really? They've updated it to true injectors. Well, there you go. Get the GM update with true injectors in it, and you never have to worry about that stupid thing again. Yeah. And then you'll probably have a damn good truck. The one I always wanted to do was, okay, the Vortec head is magic on that 350. The camshaft is ideal on them. They pull great. It was the EFI system that was a turd, right? And I always wanted to take the Vortec EFI stuff off and put TPI stuff on. The long runner TPI. Man, would that be a freaking fantastic torque motor. It really would. Mm-hmm. But that's just my 2 cents.
I heard the next one down. I heard some damn bad things about those spiders. I worked on those cars, man. They suck.
Oh yeah, the Opti-Spark is a bitch too. My uncle was having problems with. He had a Cadillac with one of those Opti-Sparks, LT1, and he had. Man, it took it like 10 different shops, and they just couldn't fix it. And I told him, he was on the phone bitch about it one day, and I said, I know exactly what it is. It's that Opti-Spark. And he's like, well, how do you know that? And I said, look, how much have you spent now in all these shops? And he's like, oh, a couple $1,000s. And I'm like, you drive it out, it's still the same? He said, yeah, after you drive it for 10 minutes, it's still the same. Okay. Go buy a replacement Opti-Spark distributor, and this is when you could get them in like 2002 or 3.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can anymore.
I don't know.
You used to be able to buy a complete GM Opti-Spark replacement distributor. Mm-hmm. And I said, go in there, buy a water pump, buy that distributor, do all of it at the same time, put new plug wires on it and plugs and the whole 9 yards, and you'll never have a problem again. But as soon as you get it running, drive it 30, 40,000 miles and start looking for a place to trade it in, right?
Right.
They're just, the Opti-Spark, it's, the name ruins it, okay? Opti-Spark is actually, it's an eye. It's an LED, like a laser eye, okay? And it has a ring, a reluctor ring inside the distributor that passes over this eye. Well, that sounds perfect. In the perfect world, that's an awesome idea. They installed it directly below the water pump with a weep hole. So when the bearing goes bad, the weep hole drips onto the Opti-Spark. If you start filling those holes in with moisture and water and antifreeze, what happens? It just doesn't even run because the ignition's all out of whack.
Yeah. It's funny because as soon as you said that laser eye, I started thinking about the Mallory Unilights. Remember those things?
Dude, those were great until the eye, like, it leave you stranded on the side of the road. Like,
yeah. I had one of my Volkswagen. It would just, which is dead.
Yeah, and those things were weird. And like I tell you, I think we talked about it before. Guys used to run around with a second eye in the glove box.
I did.
It's like,
I did too. Yeah.
Dude,
I got stuck one time in Escondido. Luckily, it was within walking distance of super shops. I walked over, pushed the car into a parking lot, walked over, got another one, and I bought a warranty on it and bought a second one. Remember that when you could buy a warranty at super shops?
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Anything with acetone. Let's see. Vortec aluminum heads. From GM or from aftermarket? Ooh, I don't know. Either one of them are probably about the same anymore. I'm going to say, if you're going to go out on a limb, the one thing that I do know of is that if you buy the Edelbrock Vortec aluminum heads, they're going to be made in the USA. That's one thing I do know. Because they're cast in California and then they're machined there in Mississippi now, right?
Yes. Some of the machining work is still done in Cedros, and then they're shipped over to us and we finish them up in the Olive Branch.
Okay. Well, so they don't go to China, though.
No.
So that's where I would put my money at. Let's see here. Let's see. Tony's Hot Rod Garage says I've done that exact same thing with a Ramjet. It's actually pretty simple to do if you can understand the wiring schematic, and I can. That's why I would have jumped all over it. I always wanted to do the oddball stroker, right? I really wanted like a '92 Caprice wagon with a 307 Chevrolet, not an Oldsmobile. 307 Chevrolet with a 400 crank in the 307. So you come out to 350, about 360 cubes. But then you use a set of Vortec heads, and they used to have a camshaft called it wasn't a camshaft. It was an engine family called HT383. But that camshaft was a roller cam that came in those Ramjet setups. It was the same cam as the HT383, which stood for high torque 383. And that cam in that 360 stroker and in a TPI setup, God, I figured it would probably 450 foot-pounds of torque and get 25 miles a gallon all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yes. Michael Schmidt, you're on it, man. That's like
What's
the
that?
worst. So he's saying, why the hell is the fuel pressure regulator and the injectors buried inside the intake manifold? Super pain in the ass, right? And it is. That is the dumbest design I ever seen in my life. I wanted a TPI one the first time I had to take that apart, and I'm like, this is trash.
There's actually a Volkswagen. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Doug Narden saying the Opti-Spark sounds like the Halifax sensor on a Mopar electronic ignition.
No. He's thinking about the Hall, the Hall effect. No. The Opti-Spark is actually like a laser. It's actually like an eye. So yeah, he's thinking about the magnetic thing. No, it's completely separate. You should actually look it up. Look up an Opti-Spark and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a little flat distributor that goes on the block like that. Oh no, go back up one. Go up two. I want this one.
Two? Okay.
Right
I missed
there.
that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, read it up.
All right. Hey, Shane, I have a VW question for you. Have you ever ran a blow-through set of Weber IDF carbs? Even better, do you know any reliable way to run E85 through IDFs?
Yes. Now, I've done this two ways. I basically did it the budget way, where I just put them on there. I didn't do anything except for basically fatter jets. I think I changed some of the emulsion tubes, and I just basically plopped them right up on top, and with caps, and then ran it through, and I didn't really have a problem. The Webers then started leaking, and then you can send them out and then get the seals on the shafts, so you can lose so you don't lose some boost through there. But I didn't really have that much of an issue with it. Everybody swore by it. I spent the money on them and sent it out. I'm telling you, man, if you got a decent set of Webers and they're in the IDFs, and I had 40s, and then I went to a 44 Webers when I had the when I went to the 2275, and now we didn't have E85 at that point, but on the 85 you're just going to have to just put more, and then you're probably going to have to mess with the emulsion tube too, because you're going to be running a lot of fuel through that thing. But yeah, don't do anything. Put them on there, run it. It'll be fine. Just basically just make fatter jets.
I was trying to read ahead here.
Sure.
Kevin's asking, Dallas, wouldn't the valves be too big and hit the deck on a 307 block? Not that I know of. The Vortec heads didn't have the 202 valves. They were generally 194, 160s, I think, which was like almost every single Chevrolet head. Now, the 307 probably didn't come with a 194, 160 valve, but that 307 block has a 3.875-inch bore, which is almost a 3.9-inch bore. And if you do 30 over, it's 3.905, right? But that's still pretty dang big. And that would work out, I would have to say almost perfectly with that 194, 160 valve.
Mm-hmm. Keep the velocity high in that port.
Right. And that's what made those Vortex really shine anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony's Hot Rod Garage is saying, here's your part numbers: AC Delco, GM original equipment, central port fuel injector, and Felpro intake gasket set. Man, see, you get the hookup on Wednesday night Tech Talk from Tony's Hot Rod Garage. I love those Vortex setups, and I tried to order one new, okay? And if you've ever been in the military, you know Overseas Auto Sales. I don't know if you've ever heard of that chain. San Diego wouldn't have had it. You had to be stationed overseas, and my very first duty station was Japan. And I had, I wanted a 98 Chevy truck so bad. Well, it didn't even have to be a Chevrolet. It could have been a GMC, but I wanted a 98 OBS body style, whatever it is, GMT 400 body style, so bad I could taste it. And I went in there with my order form, and I had taken 6 months to order this. I got all the paperwork 6 months before, and we went on deployment, and I came back, and I walked into the Chevrolet dealership with like a $12,000 down payment, and then I had my entire order form, and they had changed over to this. They said, we no longer make the 350 Chevy. I said, you don't make a 350 Chevy, the world's gone to shit, right? Like, why would you not make that? And then it was, of course, the replacement was the 5.3, right?
Yeah.
And the guy was trying to sell me on this 5.3 LS motor. I'm like, fuck, no, I don't want that. Where's the 5.7 Chevy? That's the fucking greatest motor ever made, you know? And, yeah, I'm like, you guys have lost your mind. I'm not even buying one. So I didn't buy one like an idiot. I mean, I really wanted a 98 standard cab short bed truck. I was going to lower that sucker. It was going to be two-wheel drive with a 350 and automatic and the 373 gear. That was it.
Yeah. Talking about that real quick, I'm keeping my diesel truck. I'm going to try to find a quad cab like 68 Dodge, with the crew cab, and then just basically take that body off and put it on top of my diesel truck and just extend
your Cummins chassis?
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's what, a swept line?
I don't know what they call them. It was a 68, I believe it was. Just.
I got a picture of one out of San Diego that used to sit at the auto hobby shop. Did I ever take you to that auto hobby shop that I went to up at Miramar?
No. You were telling me about going there one time. Yeah, it's 68. Yeah, 68 crew cab Dodge is what they're called. and that's what I'm looking for with the. I don't want the I want the big box. I don't want the, what do they call it? The step side. I don't want a step side.
Let me look and see if I can find it here, because I shot some pictures of one that sat in front of the. Here you go. Oh, dude, I know you and Wilburn are going to be in love with this thing.
Oh no.
Okay.
John, you up? You ready? We talked Volkswagens.
Okay.
What do we
Can you
got?
see that?
Yes, that's it. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Now this thing sat in front of the auto hobby shop for like years. No one ever moved it, and I'm like, God, it's such a good looking truck.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't see them in the Midwest because these things would vaporize if they were if they went out in the snow, they were like an Alka-Seltzer. They would freaking just, they'd rust so bad. But you get out there to the dry weather in California, and they weren't bad at all.
68 crew cab. I'm going to show you. We're gonna go John Wilburn here in just a second. Dodge truck, because we're gonna show these here. Truck. I'm gonna have a picture here. Oh yeah, just like.
Well,
here,
okay, so.
Like that. That's what I want right there.
Oh yeah, that's it.
That's it with the crew cab, But I want the short bed, but just like that. And how Dodge did it is the doors were the exact same, so it wasn't two. It wasn't like a different one. It was boom boom the exact same door. So yeah, something just like that.
So there seems to be a bunch of questions about.
Sure.
Probably use an LS piston on that 307, maybe, but that bore's a bit big. I just heard. Well, yeah, I guess you could if you went to the regular LS1. I've just heard 350 heads won't work on a 283. The 202 160 valves won't work on a 283.
No, it's too big a valve.
Yeah. Isn't the 307 like a 3.875? Yes, it is. It's 3.875 inch. Let's see. And this guy, unfortunately, Tony says, I had a 96K 1500 ex-wife wrecked and I missed that truck. I ended up buying one a few years later. That was used. It's 70,000 miles on it. I ran it for 4 or 5 years. 6 years maybe. It was a good truck. I really liked them. My dad had figured out a combo on them that was great. He used the 350 with that 4L60E and a 373 gear, and they'd get good mileage going down the road. They'd tow whatever you wanted to tow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Andy showed up. What's up, Andy?
Was Andy here? I must have missed him.
No, you haven't got to it yet. He showed up.
Oh, right here. Yep. Thanks, Doug. This one. Yeah, swept line. See, John Wilburn's all over it. He loves some swept lines.
Yeah. We had a long talk about trucks and stuff like that when we were up there in Indy. Yeah.
Look, John Wilburn, Professor P doing the picture-in-picture.
I'm doing it John Wilburn style.
That's the easiest way I know of to do it.
Right? It works.
Let's see here. Oh, man. You might be able to notch the bore on a 283-307 to use the 202 heads. I just wasn't worried about it. I was trying to create low-end torque and velocity, and Vortec head would bolt right on that sucker. I thought it would be simple. I was just trying to make something. I always like the combos. Okay. Chevrolets are not a torque motor. They're not a torque motor. None of them. Zero. Well, okay, I take that back. They had the 292 straight 6, and it was a good motor for torque, right? Everything else is a horsepower is the number, whatever torque it makes is what it makes wherever, right? That's the thing I've always hated about them. 396, rever, complete revving motor, right? 302 Chevrolet, rever. And then your torque motors that you would think would be torque would be like your 427 tall deck in the garbage truck. No, for some reason that still was not a torque motor, right? Mm-hmm. I like torque motors on the street because torque motors on the street is where it's at for fuel economy, 100%. Torque motor on the street is where it's at for seat of the pants. You want a fun driver? Build something with a lot of torque, right? Race cars, they're not the greatest race car because you can't rev them out. But man, street stuff, torque motor is where it's at. And that was the problem with 351 Windsor and the 302 Ford. It's virtually the same bore stroke combo. It's not a good combo. But man, does it get awesome when you start putting long runner EFI intakes on them.
Yeah.
They get amazing.
I want to back up real quick. 38
Sure.
POS Racing. Yes, I'm very interested. He says, I know of a 63/4 or so crew cab Dodge fleet side that could be had. Absolutely. Send it to slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Slantdailygarage@yahoo.com.
What's the fleet side? Or that's not the swept line, right?
I don't know, but anything in that, as long as it's a crew cab, I can deal with anything else because you can change
Crew
a
cabs
bed.
are bitching, yeah.
Yeah, I just want the crew cab because that way I have the space. I love having the space with the kids.
This may sound dumb, dude, but if you're willing to do a body swap, okay, you're living in Tennessee now.
Yep.
There's a place called Hodges Beds up in Kentucky. You can take your whole truck up there with that body and everything in the bed and tell them, okay, hey, swap this body on and put a ramp truck bed on it. And they will custom make a ramp truck bed. If you've ever looked at Hodges, that's who does all of the conversion ramp truck beds.
Oh, yeah.
Hodges Trucks. And they're in Kentucky.
Huh.
But
I don't know if I want. I would just like to have. I love how my Dodge drives, but it's not. It's a 2004, right? So it doesn't have the
it's a
early
good one.
version.
It has no emissions crap on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why I want to keep it. But as far as the body of it, it's the third generation, I think is what they call it, Gen 3 body or whatever. But the Gen 2s were like the kind of iconic one, and then mine is kind of like this something else.
Right. No, but those Gen 2s were the ones that I remember seeing the pictures when memes were new, right? There was pictures of the get the engine to outlast the truck, and there was like literally just an engine on a frame and no truck, right? No body. Yeah.
Mine's really good. I just love it. I mean, and I've only got, I think it's 170,000 miles on that thing, and it's just it just goes. So I'm happy with it.
Let's see. Tony's Hot Rod Garage is asking, hey Shane, does Edelbrock still have the E-Tech heads?
I believe. I don't know on that one. I don't know.
You know what? I would have to go out on a limb, and I would have to say yes. Those heads have only been around for a couple of years, and all the R&D and money spent to make those work, I'll bet you they did not get rid of the E-Tech head.
I'm going to check real quick. See, I'm doing most of the. I don't do most of the cylinder head stuff, so I'm just going to check real quick. Cylinder heads? Do they have anything here? Cylinder heads? If they have it still in the catalog, then I'm going to say yes. Cylinder heads? And? What's that?
John Wilburn says, I've been in a sorcery-free zone for the last 2 days and having withdrawals.
We do have E-Tech heads. We sure do. E-Series, E-Street, and E-Tech. Absolutely. So, yes, we sure do.
Yeah, Terry, you're not lying. That's why I like those Buicks. They're great on the street.
Yeah. I watched this guy in Nick's Garage. If you go into his, I love that guy. He actually has a Buick in there. It was a 455 Buick.
Yep.
And it made 500 foot-pounds of torque and 400 horsepower. It was awesome.
Yeah. And you see where the numbers happened, though? Like that 500 foot-pounds of torque was like 2,700 RPM or something.
Yeah, so you've seen that one. Yeah, it was awesome. And it was like everything happened before like 4,500 RPM. It was great.
Yeah, all of it.
It was awesome.
Well, okay, think of it like this. I mean, that doesn't sound like an amazing number or anything, but literally, when it's something that you don't have to rev up past $5,000, it'll last forever doing that.
Yeah.
Forever.
I just now see this John Wilburn. Yeah, sorcerer-free zone. No wizardry.
Yes. I was thinking that we might just actually have a wizardry booth.
Dude, we got to do that, man. We have to.
Let's see here.
Dan E. Boyd is exactly correct. I believe the Dodge were called step sides. I believe. I'm not sure. I mean...
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think they're called... I don't know. I'm wrong. I don't know. Who knows?
Look at this. Doug Narden says, at the asphalt company I wrenched at, we had a 396 powered C30. So it's like essentially a 1-ton Chevy truck that would warp the passenger side head once a summer. I got good at swapping heads on that mill. What a pain in the butt.
But you could probably stand inside that fender well if it was one of those big 1-tons. You know,
You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking like, and everybody's seen them. I don't know what year this truck is, but the one I always picture when I think of C30 with a 396 in it is like the 66 body style.
Yeah.
Right, on the C30, and they would have looked odd because they would have been really high because it had like a 16.5-inch or 17-inch wheel on it or something, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one that always comes to mind is like the 66. That's just the one right there because they had the swoopy early look with the big funky looking hood on them, and I mean they did look good. God, they really look good as a street machine truck, but. Danny Boyd says, I used to watch some Nick's Garage, but his videos don't flow well for me.
No, I agree. I have to click through them. So it's one of the few ones that they're like so long. They're like 45 minutes. They're just like, ugh, Yes, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Man, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should build a 307 stroker with TPI set up on it just to throw down, just to see what everybody would think, right? Because I don't have to do just Buicks. I'm just about out of the Buick realm anyway, though.
But you know what? That haters bring content. You know what I mean? So that would be awesome. And just make it. That'll never work, and then show them that works. Drive it for a year. Get 16 miles to the gallon. You know what I mean? It's just
right. Let's see. Dallas Competition Products doesn't have slicks. Oh, dude. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't know that.
They don't sell them, or they're just out of them.
I don't think they sell them.
Oh. Well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. But, I mean, maybe you can save your money on your regular parts. I do know somebody that does sell them and drop ships them to your house. His name is on here, Fab Race Mod Repeat.
Ooh,
Chris Cox.
Yeah, Chris
Cox. He does sell Hoosier slicks.
Ooh. Hoosier's my favorite, man. I don't know. Everyone's got their favorite. The Hoosiers always work. They always seem to be.
I've never had any other brand but Hoosier because that's always because Hoosier's generally a little bit cheaper, and those are the ones I can pretty much afford.
I've done the Mickey Thompsons and I've tried the Phoenix and I've tried all those, but
I've heard
Hoosiers,
Phoenix are just killer.
Yeah, they worked, but they were just different. They just I know how to do a burnout with the Hoosiers, so I know that it's going to work. So I don't know.
The Mickey Thompsons, the ones that I always hated about the Mickey Thompson was it took like 10 runs to bed them in.
Yeah, and you got to flip them from side to side, and then you got
look, dude, I don't have time to do 10 runs.
They're going to be over with after 10 runs.
Yes, I'm going to be going home because I only got 4 runs because your tires didn't hook up.
Yeah. On the Hoosiers, man, I would literally go out there, do one big fat burnout, do a half a launch on them, flip them, and be good.
When they were new, I'd go out there and smolder them, and I mean melt them down. And then after that, they were always freaking
perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see. Throw up a link for him on the slicks. I'll check him out. Hey, he's right here in the chat. Fab Race Mod Repeat. He's got his own channel. You can go hit him up. It's just Fab Race Mod Repeat. But he runs a mom and pop speed shop out of Chesapeake, Virginia.
Really?
And he sells Hoosier slicks.
I thought he just had the drag strip.
No, he's a promoter at the drag strip.
Oh, he's a promoter at the drag strip. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And his full-time job is a fabricator, but then his side hustle is this Speed Oasis LLC. They actually sponsored the AHRA for the past 2 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, you could literally call him up. He's going to... See, here's Fab Race Mod Repeat. Chris Cox. These guys are asking about you.
Yeah, see, Phoenix is good, but they wore out too fast. I agree with that. Yeah, the Hoosiers I could run for almost 2 seasons,
Dr. Art says he loves to melt Hoosiers. So, let's see. Did anyone see Tony Angelo take his bass boat. I don't know what they were even talking about.
Neither do I. No. Oh, yeah. Max Wedge, Dick Dassley, right in there. He ran M&H's for years and then went to Hoosiers. Yeah.
The Hoosiers were cheap, yeah.
Yeah, and they just work. And they're always, when you start to do rollout on them, they're really evenly matched,
When I started doing the street race thing, okay, there was no drag radials, there was no DOT slicks, there was none of that crap. It was either you had slicks or you had some kind of tire you're going to try to make hook up.
Yeah.
Hoosier had the best one. Hoosier had the QuickTime Pro, right?
Yep.
And it was like I want to say it was like a sprint car tire or a stock car tire or something.
That's exactly what I had. I had dirt track tires on mine.
Is that what they were?
I ran them at 20 pounds. That's what I had. I would go up there to Verona to the circle track up there. And I would buy those tires off those guys, put them on my. Seriously,
they're soft. They're real soft. They're like a sponge. You can put your finger through them.
Yeah, but they didn't last very long. But you put those on there.
They hooked up way better than the Goodyear Gatorbacks.
Yeah, they worked good. Yeah, but you got them cheap because they were going to throw them away, and I'm like, well, I could run these for at least a month or so.
Here's Andy Wood chiming in. We ran the McCreary dirt tires back in the day. That McCreary used to be the masters of the recap, right? Yeah. You could get the McCreary recap. I don't know. You could probably get them for dirt or for asphalt, but man, those dirt track tires were the trick back in the day, because if you pulled in there on a tire that wasn't a slick, everybody was down to race you because we all had just garbage, right? Yeah. It was Tiger Paws and Union Royals and whatever you could get to hook up. I'll tell you the worst tire that I ever bolted on a car to try to do street racing with was a Goodyear Eagle ST. Worst tire ever, okay?
BF Goodrich for me.
Was it?
The BF Goodrich. You remember that? That was like the hot rod tire, 295 5015. As soon as I put some nitrous to the car, it was okay because that's a pretty light car that I had, and I had 295 5015 on the back. I would drop them down to 20 pounds, and I could actually kind of roll it out of the hole and then kind of get into it. The second I got nitrous, man, it was just ridiculous, and that's when I started going to the dirt track tires. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I love that. See, I wish I could be back into those days of drag racing where cars, a 13 or 11, 12, and 11-second cars, that was where everybody was at, That was fun. That was
a
really
hell of a lot of fun. You went to the track, it was fun. You went street racing, it was fun. It wasn't fast enough to hurt anybody, to do anything stupid, but yet when you had a 10th on somebody, it was absolutely the greatest night ever. It really was. Because you never showed your hand. You literally gave them the 100th, and then the next guy'd come, and you give him the next 100th. Yeah. I remember when the what was the Ford Lightning Supercharged came out, and I had changed, my duty station went from San Diego to Pascagoula, Mississippi. We went to Biloxi, just trolling for some heavy hitters, right? I ran into this group of guys that had brand new Ford Lightnings. And I'm like, hey, man, you think it's fast enough to beat that old T-Bird down there? Oh, what's that, a turbo coupe? I said, yeah, it's turbo coupe. If you give it a launch, I'll bet you I'd take you. They're like, yeah, right, 2.3 turbo. Yeah, mine was anything but that. It was virtually a 5-liter Cobra motor with a bunch of nitrous on it.
Yeah.
That thing, I think those trucks only made like 340 horse, but they were like 500 foot-pounds of torque or something with that blower. Yeah. Man, I could really turn it to them guys, though, because if they let me take the leave, I would freaking murder them.
They're done. Yeah. And then you're basically back there, and then I would kill it in first, because I get you going. Then I would pull in the second, and I would look over, and I would just pull up on the throttle, but I would still hit my shift point so that they wouldn't think I was like playing with them, right? And when I got into third, I would just back up on it a little bit, and they would come charging. I almost had you, man. I almost had you. Let's do that again. Sure, no problem, man. Same thing would happen. And then there's a couple times where I didn't judge it just right, and I lost. But but most of the time I had it just right to where they would be pulling on me. He goes, man, I almost had you again.
Well, see, the tire technology wasn't there, so there was a lot of stuff that it didn't matter about your suspension setup. It didn't matter about because the tires didn't work.
That's right.
So, what the ticket used to be with nitrous is you could never out of the hole really, but I mean some guys did because they didn't have a lot of power, and so or you had a crap gear, right, and some marginal tires. But usually what would happen is first gear you just run it off the motor, right?
Get it rolling,
Once you hit second gear and it starts to get into its power band and you're running about, I don't know, 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, that's when you hammer down with the nitrous. And you don't want to bring it on hard like when you got full throttle in it, because it'll be really loud and you'll hear it'll go from wah, wah, like the guy will know something's going on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's funny. It's a perfect example. Mopars, Mustangs, and minivans. I almost had you, Shane. I almost had you because I raced him, and he was coming. I kept looking over at him. I'm like, gotcha, sucker.
See, that's the thing is you're messing with Professor P. Are you sure you really almost had him?
You never know.
See,
you never know.
You never put it all out there.
Never knew.
Man, you know what? This year the No Name National is gonna be a lot of fun, especially if Andy shows up and with Casper and he starts sandbagging everybody. That would be nice.
Well, you know what? Before we go off today, I actually have a question I'm going to throw out to everyone. We have 200 days-ish to the No Name Nationals. So I'm going. Here's what I want to propose a question. Do I finish my 1968 Dart, which is going to be a Gen 3 Hemi stick shift, which is a road race car? Or do I finish my 1966 Dodge Dart that basically I could just slam an engine in and go? Now, I would want to run some nitrous because that car's going to run like in a 6.0, so I wouldn't be competitive in the 28 10.5 class. I could put a 250 kit on it. It'd probably run the 550s or whatever. Or do I finish my supercharged Gen 3 Hemi and put it in that 66 Dodge Dart? So,
or do you bring the slant car again?
The slant car's coming regardless.
Oh, okay.
I'm going up there with you. I'm going to get up there early to help you set up, and then the wifey's coming up on Friday morning, and she's going to drive the green Dart up because there's going to be some people that I want to call it the Slant 6. So she's going to drive that up with all the kids.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. I'm
biased.
I'm biased on this. I say you finish the motor in the 66 Dart, the 408.
Yep.
And then you bring the nitrous oxide and just smash that sucker with a couple of 100 shot.
All I got to do, because I have bitchin' rods in there, all I got to do is just open up the gap to like say 33 thousandths. I could put 2-stage on that thing easily. Something to think about, because that car's ready to go. Basically, all I got to do is just put the engine in.
Yeah, I'd say, I'd say spray that thing, spray and pray. Right, bring it to the No Name Nationals and line up with Red Beard and spray and pray.
Yeah, I look at this.
I know it runs good. The car runs good.
Oh, the car's set up good. If I put 250 more horse to the damn thing, that's what 560s, I believe.
It would definitely be fast.
Yeah,
I don't know if it would actually. It might be to the point where it's not hooking up any longer. Well, you got 28 10.5 on it, right?
Mm-hmm. And I did take 150 pounds off the front with a tubular K-member, and it is going to have coilovers in the front. Basically, they're Vikings, double adjustable.
Did I ever tell you that my T-Bird would pull a 124, 125 60-footer?
Really?
Yes.
You got in the 1.2s? Man, yeah. I couldn't get out of the 1.3s. 134, 131 was my normal 60-foot.
I have just about every trick you could throw at the rear suspension. Yeah. But man, maybe that's what we should do. Maybe I'll get the T-Bird running again, and then I can't race you, dude. I can't do it. I can't.
You have to race me.
What would be cool is if I just threw you it doesn't even have a key per se, but if I just threw you the whatever, and then you drove it.
I could do that.
Smash that sucker, because I have a lot of cool parts for it. Like I had that tunnel ram made for it, so it's got a tunnel ram. EFI tunnel ram set up for it. I do need to find somebody that knows how to make a cam and make a wicked roller cam for it.
So I don't know even where we'd look for that. I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, we're past time, man. That was fun. I had a good time.
Well, I'm just starting to get in the lightning, and I can hear the wind picking up. So I got to get out of here before we have no power. But
once again, if there was a question that we didn't get to, and I appreciate you guys coming out today, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. I was looking at 38s. Scott, I got your message here for your question for the Jeep. I'll get you some numbers, and I'll get you some sort of cost or something like that, and make sure we got cores, so on and so forth, and see what we can do for you. That's all I got.
Yep, and for those of you that bought AHRA merch during the week and last week, thank you very much. It all goes towards making the events like the No Name Nationals happen. So, we're now live with the Racers Rep program with competition products. So, unfortunately, they don't have slicks, is what I found out today, but they do have a lot of other stuff. And especially if you're a Chevrolet guy, or here's something that I found out: there's a ton of Holley parts on there. They're a Holley distributor, like big time, and they can get you huge amounts of parts with a big discount that's not even on the internet stuff. He said it would take them, it would be 3 times the internet footprint with the amount of Holley crap they'd have to put on there.
Yeah.
So if you got an
Awesome.
opportunity and that's what you're chasing, give them a call. But if you want that discount, get your Racers Rep through the AHRA. Otherwise, Shane and I will see you next week, next Wednesday night.
You guys take it easy. Alrighty.
We're out of here.
Peace.